Good Friday evening, everyone. We were off last week and we're back. It is Dr. Potts and the Political Architect Show. It's been a busy couple of weeks. You saw the stock market tank today, Don. I don't know if you noticed. It basically
I
went
try to
south.
avoid it. The stock market's awfully volatile, one way or the other.
It was down 600 points per se,
Yeah,
which,
they had a couple of good days earlier in the week, and then the
yep.
last couple of days I think they lost about 1,000 points total. So kind of
Yeah.
gave back everything that they had, and
It goes back to this is all more and more of Joe Biden's America. The Russians are saying they want to use tactical nukes. We've got, there's problems everywhere, frankly, these days. You know,
yeah,
and I don't understand. I don't understand where, and if you notice, polls around the country are tilting back in the favor of Republicans. We're not, back when they said there's not going to be a red wave. I think we're going to see a pretty significant red wave when when Herschel Walker is close to winning. Yeah, he's like I think down by three with this statistical dead heat in Georgia, and I'll say it, he's probably our weakest candidate we have running right now for U.S. Senate.
I don't know if he is the weakest. I think there's
Actually, what's Carrie Lake running for? Is she running for Senate or is she running for governor?
yeah, she's running because I think Blake Masters is the senatorial
Yeah,
candidate. It's the it's the New Hampshire race. The Republican is well behind the Trump endorsed candidate there is well behind. There was a seat we hoped to pick up, but it looks like we're
and that's a
hopelessly
seat we
behind.
should pick up. There's no reason why we lose New Hampshire. We should not have
Well,
New Hampshire, frankly.
I
You
mean,
know,
this is the thing. I mean, we have the Republican Party has a tendency, when they have these opportunities to pick up
I,
races,
yeah.
seats, they nominate some of the bizarro, candidates. You know, we've talked, I think, about this before about the Christine O'Donnells and the Sharon
Yep.
Angles and things like that.
Hmm.
We're kind of seeing that again a little bit with some of this. Some of the Trump endorsed candidates are not the strongest. I mean, Walker is popular in Georgia because he's a football legend and a hero,
Hmm.
but he has stumbled on the campaign trail. He's going up against
And
a
let's
TV
just look at the
presenter.
latest. Where the allegations of him paying for an abortion 20 years ago,
Yeah, I
which I
mean,
think, although,
I don't know.
I'd like to know why is that so important to the left? It's that used to
Well,
be,
it's important. It's important in this year because this year abortion is can be a hot
yeah,
button topic in
true.
certain areas after the whole Roe v. Wade with the Dobbs decision
I mean,
earlier. So
yeah, my point is Herschel Walker not allowed to evolve in his position? Barack Hussein Obama evolved on gay marriage, as did Hillary Clinton. I mean, they evolve what Republicans can't evolve. He may have been. I mean, Donald Trump was pro-choice at one point in his life.
yeah, but I think the problem here with Walker is that
Yeah.
his denials of this,
Hmm.
and yet we have potential evidence of a canceled check to pay for it and some other things going on there, and then they've got his son who's somewhat of a conservative, I guess, social media personality.
Yeah.
One of his kids is basically disavowing him. I mean, the guy has fathered children with different women, so
Yes.
but once again, you can get away from that if time, if there's enough time that passes. Anybody, Republican or Democrat, if those are deep in your past, you can separate something from 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Yep.
However, if you deny these things and then it's
And then there's
proved
a
you actually lied about this is kind of tough. Now, Walker and Warnock were about a point apart, give or take, either way. Beforehand, I think the first poll taken right after this, which still people need to digest, put Warnock ahead by 3. So it looks like that this helped Warnock and hurt Walker, but we still need some more polling. It's too early to see him
yeah.
how much, if at all, this hurt Walker. The
However, I don't think it's going to hurt Walker as much as we may think it would in other years. I mean, let me tell you, I think it was Greg Gutfeld on the Five that said this: abortion is a luxury issue. People are more concerned about putting food on the table, putting gas in their tank, and gas is headed back up. It's still over $4 in Montgomery County. It's I know they tout the national numbers, but in New York it's not below $4. In Massachusetts, not below $4. It is, it's still significantly high. $3 is free. The cheapest gas I found was in Florida under Governor Ron DeSantis. The Circle K has a club you could join, and you could get gas for $2.91 if you're part of that club. You know,
Yeah, I mean, there are things out there. I mean, you're right in that sense. I mean, or that abortion is not going to be the top issue for a lot of people.
mhm.
Whether or not it's a luxury issue or not, I don't really know. But it's the pocketbook issues that Democrats, I think, are more worried about. That's why, you know, they deflect to things like abortion because they're hoping to get some momentum out of something because they
Yep.
can't talk about the economy and inflation. They can't talk about gas prices, and they can't, and food prices obviously are just, they're not going down. They're not really moderating. So the economy, the bread and butter issues that
hmm
where people are concerned about because they're seeing larger and larger chunks of their paychecks being eaten up by this 40-year high inflation.
Yeah.
If you can find voters and make and turn it into an abortion thing, you have a chance of better doing it. Because I think some of the Republican states have kind of muffed this whole issue by trying to go ahead and have these total outright bans of abortion. Not even after what 15 weeks or whatever. I mean, is it they're doing they're doing just like from day one kind of thing like that. So it puts people in a difficult position. So we're going to have to go see. Yeah, we do need Dwight in office.
Yes, we do.
We want Dwight for Moco.
Yeah. Yes, visit my site, dwightformoco.com, and I've got a fundraiser on the 24th with First Lady Kendall Ehrlich. More details at the end of the show.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of things here. I mean, the Democrats are clearly in trouble in November, at least on the House side. The Senate side, because you're only talking about a third of the Senate going up, and the Republicans have more than Democrats at stake on this. There's some wobbly candidates out here. We want Ron Johnson to hold on. You know, we
I
want
think Ron Johnson holds
we
one.
want Arizona to flip. We would love to see Georgia flip back. That type of thing. Because we're gonna need that. To do these things. If we can get Nevada, if we can get Arizona, and we can do Georgia, then I think we control the Senate. At that
Mhm.
point. But we've got to win those races, and it's no guarantee. The Republican candidates are just a little wobbly. I mean, Dr. Oz. Yeah, I mean, I just don't know. I mean, can Oz pull it off against Fetterman? I mean, Fetterman did get caught kind of in a lie from
Yep.
none other than the Associated Press. Okay, not a friend of the conservatives. Okay, right? And
hmm
then they tweeted out about how Fetterman is going out on the campaign trail saying that he had been as a lieutenant governor, he was reimagining the office, and then
Yeah.
but when they checked his schedule, his public schedule, which they can do because those schedules are available, for review. They found he hardly had any appointments during the time he was in office. So what he was reimagining was maybe in his mind, but it wasn't
Yep.
in reality. You know,
And I tell you, it is crazy. It is truly crazy what people are. Like I think Dr. Oz hangs on and wins in a. I think it's going to be a close race, but I think Dr. Oz with two. If you get 2 points on it, take the bet. Dr. Oz with +2. Channeling my inner Jimmy the Greek.
yeah, you remember the great Jimmy the Greek? What a guy!
Yeah, and I'll tell you this: Georgia Herschel Walker against Warnock. It's a toss-up. I think it all depends on. It all depends who comes out to vote. Is it going to be? Is it going to be families? People concerned about empty. I mean, we still can't find baby formula on the shelves. We are still finding empty shelves. A loaf of bread is getting more and more expensive. A gallon of milk is getting more and more expensive. Retailers are having to basically move to do greater sales. That's why we're seeing another Prime Day because Amazon has a lot of stockpile of stuff that they need to unload, which a lot of them are predicting a very grim Christmas holiday season this year. I know a lot of people who want to spend money. A lot of them are kind of hedging their bets, because they don't know when the next shoe is going to drop. Because I have a feeling this winter, people need to save their money to pay their electric bill, their heating bill, heating oil. Natural gas prices are going to be going up. It is going to be a long, cold winter for people living in New England. Those New England liberals who like to vote for the Kennedys and so on. And how's that worked out for you guys voting Democrat in Massachusetts, New York?
Yeah, I
You
mean, I
know,
don't, my house is never really toasty warm during the winter anyway. Try to keep the fuel bill down. I think even at my chintzy self, I still think I'm going to see a significant increase in the gas price, natural gas price over the winter. It's just going to be brutal. So it
oh, it
is
is.
gonna, it's not going to be any fun at all dealing with this whole issue. And there isn't there's much that Biden can do on that. At least he's not politically he's not willing to do the things that they need to do. Right. He's
And
just
it's gonna be
too.
yeah, and it's gonna be bad for us, right, with natural gas. But I feel for those people that have oil heat. A lot of folks in New England, a lot of them depend on oil heat. You live in Maine, you live in Massachusetts, you live in Vermont, you live in that socialist utopia, Vermont, especially. Think about you need to think twice before you vote for what's his name, Bernie Sanders. Hopefully, he's going to hang up his hat and not run again. But he's got some time, I think, still in office. But New Hampshire, I mean, think about it. You vote Democrat, you're voting for higher gas prices, higher heating bills, higher food prices, higher everything with a Democrat. Democrats ruin everything, pretty much. I mean, I still can't fathom the fact that it has been less than 2 years of a Biden presidency and how bad things have gotten. What is the next 2 years going to look like if he has the House, he has the Senate? I think it's going to be pretty bad, and it's going to be a really, really hard moving forward under Biden or any of the Democrats. I mean, look at all they all walk in lockstep. With the exception of maybe, and that's because I think he's got a tough race. Henry Cuellar, who represents the San Antonio area of Texas. The border is broken. I mean, it's beyond broken. It's like it's just really falling apart. You know, uh, and you've got problems there. Foreign policy, there are no wins anywhere. I mean, there are things that are happening. I mean, you got Vladimir Putin and his little war in Ukraine, which I keep thinking of that Deep Space Nine episode where the founder goes, "Huh, this war is going to take a little longer than we thought it would." Uh, and that's one of the biggest things is that he's threatened to use tactical. And Joe Biden said he's serious about using tactical nuclear weapons. I mean, this is insane. It is really, really insane how bad everything is under these guys. I mean,
Yeah, and that's why that's what it's part of the reason why the market is so shaky is because they really don't know. There's no doubt that they reacted negatively. What's it been almost 7.5 months ago or whatever it
yep,
was when the war started. That created some problems. Stock market does not like unpredictability, and they were definitely getting it. We have a lot of unsettling issues around the world, and Putin's not helping things. Putin's threat of using nuclear weapons, and then our wonderful president talks about a nuclear Armageddon,
yeah.
only have the staff try to walk that back because it's like you want to know a way to shake things up is that you now tell the U.S. You tell the U.S. citizens that we might have a nuclear Armageddon. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good move.
And I'm tell you, and basically the biggest bonehead play by this guy is it proves how out of touch he is when he said it's hardly gone up, it's barely gone up. It's still 8.3%. That is still a 40-year high inflation number. People are and I think higher interest rates. I think I'm seeing the price of housing come down in not just in states like Georgia, Florida, North Carolina, but I'm also seeing it coming down in our area. I am glad I've unloaded a number of pieces of real estate while the getting was good. It is not. But although we're kind of isolated, we're kind of insulated from any of the market volatilities, because I think we'll still be able to get top dollar in Montgomery County, the DMV, so to speak. But I mean, if you're living out on the Eastern Shore and you bought a house and you paid like 20% higher, and your value of your house drops 20%, that's not a good thing. You know, not a good thing at all for home buyers. And this is going to, I mean, it's going to take a while to get out of this. And honestly, it's like Joe Biden, he's seeing dead people now, and it's just a train. This administration is a train wreck,
Well, I
pretty
mean, just
much.
there are a lot of things that are going on there. I mean, when I was out in Utah, my had my son and his wife come down from where they live to
Hmm.
join us for dinner, and it's just, with some other friends of ours as well. And as he was talking, I mean, so when they bought their house last year,
Hmm.
I thought they paid too much for a 44-year-old house or thereabouts, or 43-year-old house at the
Oh, do
time.
they have houses that old in Utah?
Oh yeah, yeah, and I mean it had
Is
all
that
the
you?
original. I mean, if you think about the late '70s, it had all the original everything, cabinetry and carpeting and
Oh
whatever.
wow! So he's got a Brady Bunch kitchen with the
Yeah, so they
orange
they
walls.
ripped it all out and replaced it. They both part of their budget was they had set aside was to go and redo it. And my son's father-in-law, that's part that he had a flooring business and stuff like that. So
Oh,
he
nice.
demoed walls for them and everything like that. So they were able to do that at much lower cost than the average person. But the key for them in the end, I thought they were paying too much money and they should wait initially. I thought hopefully house prices will cool down. But the flip side that I wasn't looking down, in my crystal ball was,
Yeah.
were interest rates. So, their mortgage is at 2.75%, you know,
Yep.
what's the mortgage rates are being quoted at what, about 6.6, 6.7?
We'll be at about 7 by the end of the month. I think we'll be
Yeah.
around seven
So
percent.
as a
Although,
result of that, that pushes your payments up and changes the calculus for a lot of people in terms of can they afford to even buy a house, with those interest rates. So that part of the market's going to, definitely going to cool down because
yeah, I mean,
there's only going to be so many buyers and people who are able to afford to be able to do anything. Rents are trending downward now that everything else is cooling off too. So
yeah,
that's good. That's good for people who've been who are got stuck in a huge rent spiral.
yeah.
But there's the old Reagan thing. I mean, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? Are you better off today than you were 2 years ago in this case? Hard for, I think, a lot of people to say that
Yeah.
they are because things are getting bad really, really fast.
Yeah, and I mean, this is an entire generation has not seen things this bad. I remember 1984. General Motors was celebrating 7.7% financing on a car. You know, and that was when interest rates were headed down. And you know what happened by the spring of 1985? GM had 1.9% financing on a car, and by the fall of 1985, they were advertising 0% interest on cars. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I think I was paying either between 2 and 3% on my Ford when we got married. We bought it between 85 and 86.
yeah,
You know, um, So, but now I'm an all cash buyer and
yeah.
buy in the secondhand market and don't buy from the dealer.
That's the best way to do it. That is the smartest way to do it. I did pull the plug on my hybrid Hummer because they raised the price on me. I know. Although I did go and now pre-order a Cadillac Lyriq, which is 64,000. But if they double that price also on me, no, I'm not paying. Oh, I'm not paying the price of a house in Kansas for the. And we're talking mansion in Kansas for 160 grand or
Yeah, I mean
120 grand.
with these cars that haven't, you have to wait for delivery of. I mean,
Yeah,
basically you're agreeing to that. You're saying, okay, I want this car when it's ready,
yeah,
and here's the price today, but there's no guarantee the price will not increase. We don't know
yeah,
what the cost of materials will be by the time the car rolls off the assembly line. I
yep,
mean, and we saw what happened to Ford with their Mach-E, Mustang,
yeah,
is that the car, they actually, held firm on the pricing, but by the time they rolled a lot of them off the assembly line, they were underwater. They lost money on the
Yeah.
sale.
I mean,
So
look what they're making that up on their lightning sales, though.
yeah, and you can't. It's hard to lease a car in many places
Yeah.
because the dealers don't want to go down that route right now because that's not a
Yeah.
profitable area. They just make more money
Yeah.
off direct sales. So it's a
I had
very
a
different
yeah.
thing.
When I flew down to Florida, I had a rental Jeep, Grand Cherokee, right? It was, I think, it was actually about, I think it may have been 2 years old, but had 55,000 miles on it, right? Usually rental, that used to be unheard of for rental cars having anything with that high miles on it. It'd be like, because they used to get rid of them around 25, 30,000. So you could go to enterprise car sales and pick up a car that had 30,000 miles on it. And that
Right.
was on the high end. And now they're keeping them to 55,000 miles. That's just something, like 55K for a rental. That's just kind of like renting a car from one of those gas station rental places where the guy's got a car in the back. You can use it as a rent it from him while your car's being worked on type deal.
I long for the day when when you could get a kind of a mid-sized, just economy, a decent-sized car,
Yeah.
not huge, but
Yeah.
something that, like a four-door sedan
Yep.
type of a thing, and you could pay $25 or less per day, right? You can't you can't do. I mean, the last car rental we had in Louisville was ran with everything about $50 a
Yeah.
day. I mean,
Yeah. The Jeep I rented was for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. 5 days, 500, 500 and change. But that's actually not. It's like maybe because I still remember when we went to San Diego and we paid $600 for a Bonneville that we rented. But then again, we were both under 25, so I guess that's what we paid a premium for
yeah,
that.
and there are supply and demand issues. I mean, if there's a really
Yeah.
popular event going on or something like that,
Yeah, there's some sort of
but
convention happening in San Diego that year.
you know, yeah, my brother-in-law has got our old van out there in Utah,
Uh-huh.
and that kind of is our fallback vehicle. So we use that when we're there, so we
Hmm.
don't have to rent a car. It's a 20-year-old van, a Honda Odyssey,
Yeah, it's a
with
Honda.
like
Probably runs just
130,000
fine.
miles. But here's the thing is that you know all we're doing is putting gas in it, while we're there, because to rent a car and for a week in Utah, it's like $400, for just a
Hmm.
regular car. So it's just kind of out of control. You know, those are costs. I'm not sure when we'll see them go down. I mean,
Yeah.
car rental companies, they complained for years about like, the low prices they had to. They were kind of forced to charge because of competition to get people to rent the cars.
Hmm.
Right now, supply and demand, they don't even have a lot of them don't have full fleet. So with demand fairly robust, they just do what they do. I mean, the planes are pretty full. I mean, pretty much
Oh,
every
I am
flight.
getting tired of flying on full planes. I'm sorry. Does everybody have to come? Does everyone really have to fly? I mean, and let me tell you, flying on a Sunday is not a fun travel day because you got families that are going back to where they came from and stuff like that. It's just the plane. I got lucky, like with Southwest, you paid upgrade, so I got on and I actually found a seat right in the front row. I'm like, wow, I'm going to be the first one off this plane, and I was the second one off the plane. But that's I think that was great, but I have yet to see a plane that goes. I mean, I remember when I used to fly to New York on the shuttles, and half the plane would be empty. When I flew to New York on Friday, it was like crazy packed. I'm like, really? How many people do you really want to take roll the dice with your life by going to New York City on a Friday? You know, uh,
Part of it is that their schedules are so much smaller than they were before. They don't have as many
yep,
flights, as many options.
yep.
Southwest to Utah, they had, I think my wife said that, there were 3 or 4 direct flights between BWI and Salt Lake City
Hmm.
every day. Now, post pandemic, there are zero. You
Yeah,
have, we fly from BWI to Denver, Denver to Salt Lake. So, we spend anywhere from an hour and a half to 2.5 hours in Denver waiting for the next plane, the connection. Uh, so, it just adds
and
extra to the day.
And it's like those things. It's crazy how we can't. I mean, I remember when I. This is just. I want to say 2014, 2015, 20. I think it was. May have been 2016 actually. We had to. I flew back from Georgia. I was able to get to the gate, and there was another flight going to Baltimore that left 30 minutes before the flight I was supposed to be on. I go, hey, can I get on? They go, yeah, get on. And they just had to go back to BWI later to get your bags when your plane comes in. I'm like, that's fine by me. I don't care. Um, but now it's like they're like so far and few between. These flights are like you get if you miss your flight, you got to wait like at the least I think 2-3 hours before you get another flight to where you're headed. And I mean, destination like Orlando, you think Orlando, you'd have like a flight going to Orlando every half hour, like a shuttle, like they used to do when you used to fly to New York.
Yeah, no, I
And
mean, a lot of those things are just not. They just don't, because of all kinds of things going on there. It's not what it used to be. Flying. I mean, I used to fly a fair amount, for business,
yeah,
and
I mean, at AIM, you were like at a conference, I think once every other month.
yeah, I was on the road a fair amount of time, but now in my leisure, I'm not out there doing it, but and I go through this stuff, and I'm like,
Yeah,
man, this is just not fun. Yeah, I have this mixed reaction with Southwest because you know we don't we don't pay for the 8 to 1 to 15 seating, uh, so then we're there with everybody else, on trying to get our boarding passes, 24 hours in advance. That's some of the most stressful time because I'm sitting there on the computer here going like this, seeing what I get, and it's like the flight we had out of Denver to BWI, we were
hmm.
at B-44, and so that means we wound up in the back of the plane, and we
Oh
barely
boy,
we barely we barely got our luggage in overhead. I mean, it. I mean, there were still people behind us, right?
yeah.
And so it was it was
See,
going.
I will pay the extra $20 to get bumped A through 15. A1 through A15. I will pay the $20 to get that. I although a
Well,
friend of
see,
mine,
Southwest is smart though because they now vary it, depending upon the flight.
yeah,
They vary the fee. So I think on this one it's $30 per
yep.
segment per person. So if
But
we
if you
want,
do it, yeah. But if you do it when you buy your ticket, it's still $20.
is that right? And
Yeah.
Young has got he's playing the flute. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't hear any flute music.
There's something in your background. I don't know.
Uh, it's the television.
So
But
yeah, I
it's
don't know.
like,
I mean, yeah, I I think Young has got a few upgrade. She's got a few of those in her account. She just hasn't
mhm,
figured out how to actually use them yet. So I'm like,
yeah.
next time we fly, we're going to go there and see how we apply those so that we can get on board
Hmm.
earlier.
And I mean, you still have airlines like Frontier and Spirit, where like Bats came up here to do the closing on his house, and he flew up. It only cost him $35 to fly up and fly back. But and here's another thing. I seem to remember these MD-80 planes, and well, I don't think they use MD-80s anymore, but the 737s. It wasn't three on each side. I seem to remember it being two on each side, opposed to three. Or am I just thinking that was business class? But I mean, I seem to remember these planes because the seats definitely have gotten. It's more crowded. You have less leg room in front of you than you did in the past. And heaven help you if you got some kid that's screaming or something like that. It's like, it's like let the kids sit by the window. They can watch out the window and watch the world go by, so to speak. It's like, but it's yeah, and it's just the flying is not. And I think I think we're 20 years away from 9/11. I think if you're, because in the old days you go right up to the gate, right? And they said that because of security, they don't let family say you say your farewells at the security line. I'm thinking if family members are willing to go through security, get patted down, go to the gate, you know, and because a lot of people like to see people off at the gate, they Because when you see them off at security, it's you're in that. Do we leave or do we hang around in case the flight gets canceled? Something happens. You don't want to be driving home and have to drive back to like the airports. Imagine if you drop someone off at Dulles and then you get a call, you're halfway home and they go, "Oh, our flight got canceled. Can you come back and take us back home or something like that?" Stuff like that. It's really bad. I think if you've got a TSA pre, at the very least, if your family's TSA pre members, you should be allowed to go to the gate, see your family off at the gate, and because you've already been screened, you've already been gone through all the processes. But I don't think that's going to happen. Although, and who knows? Maybe Joe Biden might do that for popularity points. Say, hey, you can go to the gates now.
Yeah, but I mean, I think even though that kind of thing went away because of 9/11 and the new security measures,
Yeah,
with when you have on some days 2 million people traveling and passing through security around the
yeah,
country on a daily basis,
yeah,
sometimes 2.5 million, and those are just the flyers, right?
yeah,
The airports, during their busy times, they're already crowded with passengers. The last thing we really need are
yeah,
family members on top of that. They really don't even have enough. They don't really have. They don't have enough seating on a one-to-one basis for every passenger that they're sending out. It's not because not
yeah.
they know not everybody sits down and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think that
That is true. I have noticed the gates are a lot more crowded than they. I don't remember the gates being as crowded as they are now. It's like when I was flying from LaGuardia. It's like like where'd you all people come from? You know?
yeah, I mean, look, we flew in. We came back on Wednesday night. We landed at
Yeah,
about 7:30 on Wednesday night at BWI. When we finally get out of the plane, about you know took about 15 minutes because we were at the back of the plane or thereabouts.
yeah,
We walked out and we were amazed at 7:30 at night, or 7:45 by that time
yeah,
probably, how busy the Southwest terminal was. There were
yeah,
people waiting for flights to Phoenix and all other places, and I hadn't really thought about it. Just didn't think about it until I saw this. I'm like, wow, there are a bunch of people here that are still trying to get out of Baltimore, out of town, going other places. It just like I'm a morning flyer. I mean, I rarely ever take a flight that my originating flight that is any later than about 8 o'clock. Try to get out by 6
Are
or
those are
if I
those
can.
planes less full when you leave at like 7 8 take a 7 a.m. flight or something?
Not necessarily. Depends upon where you're going. I mean, the way the system is, right, for all airlines, it's a hub and a spoke system, right? So
Yeah.
they do try to funnel as many people to their hub,
Southwest is smart. They don't do the spokes. They just they don't
and
do
then
the hubs.
disperse from there. So as a result of that, you have this kind of funnel effect of where they're trying to send people.
Hmm.
American will send people to Chicago or Dallas and Charlotte, right? So you have
Yeah.
heavy. So as a result of that, if you have these connecting flights, the planes are fairly full there. Now, if you were flying other places, you know, just for directly, probably not
Hmm.
anywhere near as crowded if you were not on one of the main lines, kind of thing like that. But
Hmm.
it is just absolutely crazy how that is. But early morning flights, the thing with that, the reason that they tend to be crowded too is that business travelers, people they want to get to a meeting at their
Yeah.
final destination.
But I mean, going
So,
back in time, like when we would go to the CRP, the flights would many times be like 6:30 in the morning. The plane would be not nearly as full. Although those are probably larger. Well, those are a little bit larger planes than the
yeah.
737s. I think they made some. I don't know if they used 740. If any of those were ever 747s, but they were a little bit larger, or it just seems that way. I don't know, but back then the planes would be fairly empty. The earlier you go, the less people on the plane, less crowded, less headaches. You get through. One thing I do love about Southwest, it's you could just check your bags in right outside. You don't have to go into. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to go inside and wait in a long line. But in Orlando, they make you wait in a long line. You gotta. Southwest is really. You gotta print your own luggage tags and put the luggage tags on. They don't do it for you. I mean, it's a small inconvenience, but You know,
I
when
know
you're
Young
paying.
was not happy with me to a certain extent because she wanted to bring back more stuff from Utah, but I'm like, absolutely no check-in. We're taking everything on the plane because I don't want to wait. I don't want to have to wait to check the bag. I don't want to wait to get the bag back, you know.
Yeah.
And so
Well,
amazingly enough, she packed a lot of stuff in that bag. She even brought back my brother-in-law has a small little kind of dessert place off of the
uh-huh.
BYU campus, and so they buy a lot of. Looks like they're about between 3.5 and 4 gallon tubs of ice cream from BYU Creamery, which the
Oh wow.
the ice cream from the creamery is good. If it when you're getting ice cream from a creamery, it's
Yep.
pretty good stuff, right?
Yep.
And so, but so they go through a lot of this. They have a lot of these buckets, and son of a gun, if she didn't pack two of those buckets in two bags, and then she
How'd
just
they get
filled
through?
them.
Didn't TSA try to take them out, or didn't TSA
No,
like?
no, not the buckets. The buckets, she just put other stuff inside of them, right?
Okay.
She got look, she so Salt Lake is they're I think their magnetometers and everything like that are super sensitive. I mean, we have TSA pre, and we
Yeah.
get I went through and I had to take my jacket off, and then they made me go through the machine and put
Yep.
my hand, my thing up
Yep.
like this after that, and I'm like, just because of the stupid jacket, which I'm supposed to be able to wear based on
Hmm.
TSA pre, right?
Yep.
And, but she got flagged because when we were at Costco the day before, she managed to find garlic salt. Okay, we cannot find garlic salt at Costco anywhere here,
Really?
and she found it and she bought a jar of that stuff. And it's just a plastic jar,
Hmm.
And they had to do the whole swab thing of that. And like,
Oh,
you know,
jeez.
yeah, she was pretty sure she was going to get stopped for something else. Or I think she had some fruit, a lot of small fruit.
Oh, they
She
don't
thought
care about fruit. They don't care unless you've got oranges or limes.
Yeah, I think she just thought the shape of it might throw them off or whatever, but they didn't.
Hmm.
They were focused on the garlic salt. So, um, you never know. I mean, it's just it. I'm I'm waiting for the day, which is probably I think not till 2024 when we fly in and out of Salt Lake and are not flying Delta. If you fly Delta, it's a lot easier, but if you fly any other airline but Delta
Oh,
to
really?
Salt Lake, you know, you're going to have a 15 or 20-minute walk easily to your gate because their tram system that they promised when they opened the airport still is not in effect
Well, I
yet.
tell you, one thing. I mean, Orlando, right? And a lot of airport. I mean, Dulles does it now. I remember when at Dulles they used to have the planes come right up to the main terminal, right? And now those you don't. The main terminals. You board the trains. It used to be those people movers they had, and you take the trains. You go out to the island terminals, as they call them, I believe. Like Atlanta's got that. Orlando has that. But Reagan BWI does not have that. And that's one thing that they were talking about at one point, adding to BWI during the last expansion. Because they say it's a security thing where you separate people that are flying and people who are not flying. You separate them that way. And but I tell you, a friend of mine did tell me there's a little racket you can use, and he goes, "Because I'm now 50, I can try this. Is get a wheelchair. You get to board the plane first."
Yeah, well, I mean, you'll get on a lot earlier.
But I tell you, I go, but do I have to wait for a wheelchair when I'm getting off? They go, yeah, you do. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, but yeah, you'll be the first one on, but in most cases you'll be like the last one off.
Yeah. Well, no, I think they make you, because I've seen people like with wheelchairs. The Sky Bridge or whatever. They have people waiting there with wheelchairs,
They
and
do
many
have
times
them waiting there, but the able-bodied people get off first because
yeah.
it takes so much time to get somebody in and out of the plane with a wheelchair.
I was telling my friend, I go, hey, maybe I should just say it's a miracle. I've been cured by the Southwest, by Saint Southwest.
When you
I
mentioned
can walk.
when you mentioned Dulles and the people movers, the thing I was thinking about when I was when we landed BWI, since we were about 4 rows from the last seat of the plane,
Yeah.
3 or 4 rows,
Hmm.
was that I still remember at Dulles, depending upon the plane you had, the
Yeah.
people movers would go to you could board them
The
on both.
doors.
They would bring
Yeah.
them right up to the plane, and you could go from the rear and from the front, depending upon the size of the plane. You know
Yeah.
how nice that was. Is like you didn't have to wait for everybody going, front. if you were halfway back or closer to the back, you could go out the back. That was great.
Yeah, I mean those 747s, were great. I remember, I want to say when I flew to Britain in 1986. Yeah, they did that for the British Airways. The people who just came right, and I thought that was kind of a neat thing. However, now they do trains, and not a big, it's not a. They don't get to do that anymore. I wonder what they ever did with all what they if they repurposed those people movers into something else or something that I
Yeah, I don't
seem
know. I
to.
mean, they were so unique. I mean, because they would go up and they would go down, right?
Yeah.
I think they raised them to hit the gate, and then they
Yep.
then they would lower down to drive and then raise them back up
Raise them
again.
again. Yeah.
You know, yeah, that was kind of a unique experience.
And I think that was only Dulles Airport was the only airport I think in the country that had those. I think.
I'm pretty sure I never saw them anywhere else. Very
Yeah.
unique, very unique.
And that's
Overall.
so we gave everyone our flying. By the way, I think Delta's a horrible airline, by the way.
Yeah, well, it's hard to say what the real good airlines are these days.
Mhm.
I mean, Southwest is really efficient because I mean, you basically get one cup and a
Mhm.
drink unless you ask for a second one. Flying American, they give you the whole can automatically most flights.
Actually, now at Southwest, they're giving you the can too.
Yeah, I've flown Southwest in the last two,
Maybe it's just this last flight.
to Louisville and back, and the other one,
Mm.
and yeah, you ask for a juice or whatever, and they just give you the cup. And I'm thinking like, okay, and they really don't come back and say, "Do you want more later?"
Yeah.
They it's like, wow, so you really just give us the one cup and expect us unless we ask directly for that's
Yeah.
going to last you for 4 hours.
And I tell you, Continental, they used to charge for water and everything. Continental, because when I flew to Austin on Continental, I asked for water. They go, "Oh, that would be $3 or $4." I don't even think it was $3. More than $3. Like $6, $7 for a bottle of water.
Yeah.
And it's not even. I'm not even getting Perrier. It's just Deer Park water. And those. And
Times have changed.
I know. It's like I don't know if you've seen on Facebook people that how people used to dress when they fly. You got fed really well. Now how people dress when they fly, and you get. I mean, do they do continental breakfasts anymore on planes? Or is it
I mean,
just for trans?
there's no food on planes unless you're in first class, right? Just
Yeah.
snacks,
Yeah.
or you buy, on some select flights. If I think if the flight's over 2 hours, something like that, most of the
Yeah.
airlines offer to sell you something for like $8 to $10, right?
Yeah.
It's prepackaged
I tell you,
something.
if trains were more efficient, I would not mind taking the train to Florida if they were more
Okay,
efficient.
that was because that's the second you've been mentioning this train thing. So I just saw this article in the Wall Street Journal. I was thumbing through, and in France, they're
Hmm.
trying to the environmentalists are basically trying to basically force Air France to do away with any domestic flights within France of like 2.5 hours or less. If it's 2.5 hours or less, and there's a train alternative, the flight goes away, and people have to take the train only because it's supposed to be better for the environment.
That is horrible. That is horrible. If I paid to fly and then I'm told, "Oh, you got to take the train now." What if I had a? What if like you're taking a flight from Paris to Lyons, which is probably about I want to say maybe an hour flight, maybe if even that. And then the train ride has got to be more than an hour. I mean, I took the train to Florida in 2008, and let me tell you, it was only faster than driving by 2 hours. And once you get into Florida, you can go fast as you want.
Yeah, I mean
Uh,
trains. I mean, inevitably. I mean, unless they're putting in like bullet type of trains everywhere or
yeah.
something like that, you're inevitably going to wind up being on something
Well,
that's a lot slower than an
I've
airplane,
taken,
right?
yeah, I mean, I've taken Metroliner to New York City, and that's it's you get there in about I think 2 hours. Metroliner gets you there in 2 hours to New York City. It stops in Baltimore, Philadelphia, and New York City. You know,
Well, I mean, when I
think
used to, I mean, taking the Excella versus just like the Northeast,
yeah,
whatever it was.
Northeast
I mean,
Limited.
yeah, the the Excella basically supposed to be the faster train, but they have to ride on the same tracks. They just do fewer stops. So as a
Yeah.
result, you save about 30 minutes and you pay more money for the privilege of saving 30
You're
minutes.
paying, and I tell you, the reason I won't take the train, I thought about taking the train when I went to New York last week, right? Because it was I had to go. You have to get a cab from LaGuardia to Midtown, and instead I thought, hey, take the train. I'll be right there in Midtown. Don't have to. Amtrak costs just as much as flying sometimes. It
Yeah,
is.
the rails are not as cheap as they used to be, right?
I know. It's like it's like I mean, they want to get us out of our cars and into those clean electric trains, so to speak. Hey, how about you make those trains go, move those trains faster, frankly? And
So we took, we use so Young is really good at, she's, because it's about 40 or 50 miles away, Salt Lake to
mhm,
Provo from the airport. She frequently uses, basically takes the light rail from the Salt Lake airport to to it until it connects to the commuter train or the train, and then goes down to Provo and then gets someone, our sister-in-law or whatever, to pick her up.
mhm,
Yeah, all told, that trip is just under, if you with waiting for the train, just under 2 hours. Um, and it would take you 45 or 50 minutes, maybe an hour to drive that. So you spend more time on it. But I was on that train that went from Salt Lake to Provo and Provo back to Salt Lake. I'm like, it was actually a very smooth ride. I didn't mind it as much as I thought I would.
mhm.
And to get to the airport using that method costs all of $6 a person, right?
Mhm.
6.10. And we actually didn't wind up paying on the way back because we tried to buy our fare through three different machines, and it wouldn't take a credit card. And I'm like, this is all I have.
Jeez. Yeah, it's funny. My barber only takes cash. Sparrow the barber in Kensington, great barber, everyone, but he only takes cash. So every time I go there, I never remember to bring cash. So I got to go around the corner to the Safeway to pull money out to pay him. Right, that's fine. But I'm thinking, I mentioned him. I go, hey, have you guys thought of using Anadot or some of that to take payments? Or PayPal to take your credit card payments.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
even if you could just paid them directly out of your checking account through,
yeah,
Venmo or PayPal or Cash App or something like that.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame them for the kind of the it's not a high dollar business necessarily, you know. So I mean, regular barbershop it's not a stylist charging hundreds of
yeah,
dollars for your hair. So,
yeah,
you don't really want 2 to 3% of your revenues, being eaten up by credit card fees. I don't
yeah.
blame them in the least for that. Um, yeah, cash. Yeah, I mean, cash is, but it does got to say. I mean, I carry very little cash, and most of my transactions are basically credit or debit, right?
Yeah.
If,
And I tell you, New York City has changed a lot since the last time I was there. It is, I was we were at the Four Point Sheraton in Times Square, and let me tell you, it's not as safe as it once was. You don't want to be out after 2 a.m. in the city, frankly. There was a
you know,
tourist. It's funny, the same weekend, there was a tourist from Maryland who got mugged in the Times Square area at like 3 in the morning. You know,
Yeah, I mean, they just had that person who just stabbed several people in Vegas on the Strip.
yeah,
You know, apparently an
it's
illegal immigrant, but we'll see if that's actually true. But still, nevertheless,
illegal aliens. By the way, we're about 10 minutes to the hour, and we've got one thing I do want to mention is how old Vlad's little war is not going too well in Ukraine,
no.
and now he's the areas he's annexed, he's losing.
Yeah, I mean, everybody knows that was such a farce, right? I mean, and have a vote, have a sham vote, and then go ahead
Yeah,
and say you're annexing those cities. It's just, it, you know, they haven't really done anything right during this war effort at all. And people have. Men have fled in droves to other countries to
Yep.
avoid the conscription. They don't want to be there. They don't want to fight. They're not going to be
Hey, can we
trained.
send Peter Paul and Mary, or what's left of Peter Paul and Mary, to do protest songs in Russia? You know, and they could, or send some of the draft dodgers from Vietnam era to Russia to teach them how to flee to. Well, they can't flee to. Well, actually, they could, depending where they live, flee to Canada.
Yes.
uh,
I mean, Putin is trying to save face. I mean, he's going to continue this effort, but they just, this latest, kind of offensive by Ukraine, it just shows that, you know, Russia's got old equipment and they've got very untrained people
yeah,
now that are fighting there, and they're lots of them are dying. And if you're Russian citizens, I mean, if you had a different job and all of a sudden you got drafted into this army, there's just no way you're going to get enough training to get sent to the front lines and fight. That you can't just send somebody out days or weeks right after drafting them in, put a gun in their hand and give them the equipment and say go and fight. It's just not going to work.
yeah.
Ukraine's had a lot of help from the West, and I know that there are lots of conservatives that are not happy with the amount of money that we've sent to Ukraine for this effort, but
But
you know,
here's this is a message to them. My view is this, right? We supported, without sending any soldiers, we supported the freedom fighters in Nicaragua, Angola, and supported, by financial aid to these countries around the world fighting communism. We're doing the same thing. Granted, Joe Biden has no clue what he's doing, but this is that's the big, that's like a problem there. I think we'd have more confidence if it was a President DeSantis or a President Trump or a President Bush running um, running the campaign. Frankly, it's not really a campaign. It's kind of like Lend-Lease was when we gave aid in the form of ships and did that trade for bases for destroyers and so on with Churchill. And we're helping people stand up to the bad guys. We're the good guys. We stand up to the bullies in the world, frankly. And it's troubling when people they feel that way. You got a lot of friends of ours are very anti-Ukraine war, saying, "Oh, it's all Ukrainian propaganda. They're not doing as well as they say they are." So who are we to believe?
yeah, no, it's just, yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I really don't know how long. I mean, Putin is going to stay in this for the long haul. I mean, we're well, in a couple more weeks, we'll hit the 8 month mark, and
yeah,
it is, we're going to head into a brutal winter, and then we'll see how that goes. But um, this was an ill-advised,
yeah,
maneuver by Putin to go in there. He thought he was going to get this done in a few days. Never thought it was going to hit, 8 months plus. Uh, but he has so much invested. I think he just feels he can't
yeah.
pull out. But I mean, when Russians are rebelling against you, you've got a problem. I mean, it's
Yeah,
just
I mean, let me tell you, this is not going to get better. It's going to just get. It's not going to end well, frankly. It's going to be very bad. It's going to get, and frankly, I don't. And here's the thing: if he were to use tactical nukes, the response from the world and civilized community has got to be, "What the hell are you doing?" And they would be punished so severely that they would be in permanent third world status as a country, frankly, and it goes for their allies who would who give them aid and comfort, like the Chicoms. It's crazy, how bad things are, going right now. But it looks like he's going to fail, and maybe he fails, and he basically gets somebody Like he slips down the stairs and lands himself into a coma or something like that. Because the Russian people are not supporting this war. The Russians that live in Ukraine are fighting with the Ukrainians to expel the Russian invaders. And I think part of the problem is that if the Ukraine never voluntarily gave up their nuclear arsenal, uh, the Russians never would have dared do what they've done. And if President Trump were in the White House, the Russians never would have invaded. Now you got saber rattling in China over Taiwan. It's gonna get buckle up. It's gonna get worse, I think, before it gets better, frankly. And I mean, this guy with his executive orders, pardoning all the pot folks and so on, and it's like he's just doing this to grasp to get votes. It's an election time scam. Is he going to pardon? It's kind of like when Bill Clinton pardoned the FALN terrorists, so Hillary could get the Puerto Rican vote in New York. And I tell you, Don Imus, the late Bernard McGirt made a comment. He goes, do you think they'll let John go to get the Italian vote in New York City? And but yeah, that's it's long and short. It's all politics to these people. Pardoning those weed users. I think it's really bad. I think the what do you call it? The fact that and when I go running through the park, it used to be the worst thing you'd smell would be some smoker. Right now, you're smelling pot, and pot does break your stride. You have to smell that stuff when you're running through. And it's just not good, frankly. I think it should stay the way it was, criminalized, frankly. Uh, People high on pot do get behind the wheel and kill people, and it's just not something you want, frankly. And I also like the appeals courts when DACA is illegal. That is one of the best things that happened. I think best news I heard this week. You know.
Yeah, I mean it's another blow to the Democrats and what they're doing. So obviously this is still not over yet, but I mean it's one of those things that says that you just can't throw these programs out there willy nilly and just say by executive order I decree this and you know
Mhm.
and this is going to be the way it's supposed to be. So it's not holding up. We'll see where it really lands in the end, but at least right now, it looks like the conservatives, we gained a victory for now.
Mhm. And we can't end without Orioles magic. They
Yeah. So
didn't. They,
for the
they
for the
finished ahead of the
Orioles,
Red Sox.
I want to compliment the Orioles for the season. 83 wins.
Yeah.
That's a huge jump for them.
Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, while the Washington Nationals, are in severe rebuilding mode, I really don't see when they're going to, get back to where they were. I think what they
Yeah.
win. Did they even win 56 games this year or something like that? They were like they were the worst team in Major League Baseball,
Yeah.
which was far worse than I thought they would be. But the Orioles, and I know the Code Man, your buddy the Code Man, is very
Yeah.
optimistic about the Orioles in the off season.
Hey, is the
They've
Orioles
got a good
finished?
GM, they've got a good manager.
Yeah.
It's the ownership that's a question mark as to, you know, I know Cody said that Elias is supposed to have control, et cetera, but it's still the owner can do whatever the owner wants to do, and
Yeah. He made his money suing tobacco companies. I mean, are we really surprised that he'd support Wes Moore?
no, I mean we know we've
We
known
know Peter
Angelo's
Angelos.
politics. That's long baked into the cake, there. But
Yeah.
but the Orioles can't stand still over. They improved so much. I mean,
Yeah. I
I mean
tell you, if they
they
just,
were within spitting distance of making the expanded playoffs.
I know.
So
I tell you,
if they
if
if
they
they
finish, if they just move up one notch next year, I'll be happy. They don't need to go to first. They don't need to win the division. If they just move up one notch every year, they'll eventually get to the number one slot. And by the way,
and they really, I mean, to make based on how this worked out this year, I mean, an improvement to go from say the goal next year is to win 90 games.
yeah,
That's a +7. They really don't necessarily have to make a ton of moves to do that. They
yeah,
just have got to be willing to spend some money to shore up the offense a little bit.
Yeah, Peter Andrews, why don't you spend some of that tobacco money you made from suing Americans and tobacco companies? Spend some of that tobacco money you have you're sitting on. But I tell you, yeah, if 90, I mean, any other year, 83 wins puts you in the top three slots. It's just the AL East was just a tough, tough
Well,
division.
The AL East is a beast. The Red Sox had a down year. They collapsed, but
Yeah,
the Yankees with all their money, and then you have the Blue Jays and the Rays, always
yeah.
tough team. The Blue Jays have got some great young stars, so they're back on the ascension. So, you know, you've got to be something else. That is probably the toughest division in baseball.
Yep.
At this point, it's so competitive. So we'll see what the Orioles decide to do in the off season.
Yeah, and look at this. The Dodgers will probably go to the World Series and beat the Yankees, and that'll be the best justice there.
We'll see. Do not count out the Atlanta Braves because they had a phenomenal end to their year. They came from
Yeah,
10.5 games back. They won the division. Uh, they have got the core of their team signed they've signed a lot of these young guys to 10-year
hmm
contracts, willing to spend the money now. The Dodgers are a great team. I think it comes
and
down to
they're
the
they're
Dodgers and the
they're the
Braves.
best team in baseball right now. They are the absolute best team in all of Major League Baseball right now.
Yeah. The problem for the
Well,
Dodgers going into these playoffs is just that they've got some injured pitching and some other things, and so
yeah,
that's a little bit of a question mark. But they are the Dodgers. They
but
they outscored
Hershiser,
they outscored their opponents by an average of 2 runs per game.
yeah,
It's almost unheard of, to be able to do that. Their plus
yep.
differential was over 300. Unbelievable.
I mean, they have not brought the pennant back to LA since Orel Hershiser was and Kirk Gibson was playing for the Dodgers. That's how long it's been.
They won the World Series 2 years ago.
Did they?
Yeah.
I must have missed that.
Yeah, so it's 19 was the
apologies to
national.
our,
19 was the
apologies to
national.
our LA
20
watchers.
in the
Yeah.
shortened 2020 season.
Oh,
It
that's
was
right. It was a short season.
20,
Yes,
and then the
yes,
Braves won. The Braves won it last year.
yeah.
Um, but
I never
the
liked Hanoi Jane and the Atlanta Braves. Frankly,
yeah, but
Ted Turner.
those guys are long gone. Look, we know the political correctness that goes on, right? You remember, Jane and Ted, they used to do the tomahawk chop. They used to
Yeah,
do the thing,
exactly.
and you can't do that stuff anymore, right? The Cleveland
That'd be a
Indians
hate crime.
they're in the playoffs as the Cleveland Guardians. It's like, I'm sorry, they're still the Indians to me. All this
Yes,
renaming stuff
it's
is a
like
bunch
it's like
of
it's
crap.
like the Washington Commanders, right? They're the Redskins.
They're the Redskins, and they play like the Redskins. So
Yes, they lost to the Cowboys last week.
yeah, they're not going to win many games this year. They're a horrible
I,
team.
I think it's funny how
They
when
spent
they
all
won.
that money on a quarterback who had a lot of question marks, and all they got was more question marks.
Remember Deion Sanders when Dan Snyder took his paycheck checkbook out and bought Deion Sanders and a bunch of other great players, and that didn't work out well for him either.
Yeah,
Uh,
Deion was great.
he's on his
Washington
weight.
Washington has had a lot of bad contract signings, maybe more so than a lot of other teams over the years. They you know
Yeah.
they take somebody. They signed Josh Norman to a huge contract, and
Yep.
after about 2 years, he just flamed out. They tried to find a way to get rid of that guy.
Yep. And that hits their salary caps and so on, which kind of ruins things. By the way, if old friend of mine from the days of elementary school, Andrew Marinez, check him out on Amazon. He's written a bunch of sports books, one on baseball. I think he's got one on basketball and one on football. And I think he's working on one on hockey now. But check him out, Andrew Marinez. Great book. And great guy. Andrew, really good guy. Grew up in the neighborhood and so on. He was from Wisconsin. They moved here. And he was still a Packers fan. God bless him. That was when the Packers were really atrocious and the Brewers were atrocious. But anyways, final thoughts time. Donovan, go.
We kind of rambled through some things here as we try to wrap it up, but I think one thing there I had down here was that, so surprise, surprise, Elon Musk has agreed to buy Twitter after all, which was not a surprise to me because the whole idea of why he sued and what he was doing. I think once they because they were going to that chancery court, you know Musk's weak arguments were being exposed. he was not going to win his case at all. And so, instead of losing the case, he's agreed to buy he's got a little hang up on the financing, some other things that they're trying to do.
Hmm.
But that deal is supposed to close by the 20th of October. Otherwise, it will go to trial, which Musk will try to avoid. But in the meantime, as a result of that and some other things, Tesla's deliveries were not where they were supposed to be. So now Tesla stock has been it's off significantly here in the last week. And so I'm not sure where the bottom is on that, but maybe the bubble is finally bursting on that. It's a lot of money for Musk to spend on Twitter. He's going to pay much more money than it's worth to begin with.
Yeah, and the
But
stock market isn't doing too well. So I mean,
yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. Um, Kanye West had a concert canceled in L.A. He then wondered whether or not it was because he was he put out a thing where he was wearing a White Lives Matter T-shirt, which got a lot of liberal blacks and liberals period very upset with him for doing that, and he was on Tucker, the other night,
yeah,
and
he's
so
on tonight again. Tonight was part two of that interview.
for part two. So yeah, I mean, I gotta say,
Yes.
but you go back 4 or 5 years, and the last person I ever thought would be on Tucker Carlson, Kanye West.
Yeah,
But
it is.
sometimes these guys actually have some common sense and say, look, BLM is a sham, and so you know
Yeah,
there's nothing more heretical than a black entertainer saying, by the way, that Black Lives Matter thing, it's a sham, it's a hoax, it's just
yeah,
they're taking your money and they're a bunch of crooks.
yeah. I
So
mean, they're buying mansions with their money.
yeah, so good for Kanye on this. I'm not a guy who ever bought his music or listened to his music or anything like that, but
He's running for president. Remember, he told us in 2016 he was going to run for president in
that's
2020, but I
true.
guess now he's going to run in 2024 now.
That's true. That's
And
true.
Eugene Craig was all in with Kanye West,
Well,
our former third vice chair. He was, I believe, for
yeah,
the Maryland
he
GOP.
was the
But
third
yeah,
vice chair for a while, right?
yeah, and he was
So,
all in for Kanye.
and we've got just a little over 4 weeks until the election day, but many areas early voting has started or
Yeah.
will start very soon. This is kind of a big unknown factor here, is that because as people cast their early their votes, um, the effect of an October surprise becomes less and less, because a lot of those things were always primed to happen within the last couple of weeks of the election cycle,
Yep.
but people are voting a good 30 days out or more, and so as a result of that, there are a lot of votes that are being cast. We don't know which way they're going to go. I think it was in before the pandemic, 42% or something like that, people voted by mail or something to that
Hmm.
effect, or by, it went up to over 70 during the pandemic. It'll probably drop back down again, but that's a huge chunk of votes that you cannot, if you're running a campaign, you have to run your campaign thinking about, you've got to get out ahead and get all your information out as early as you can now, because you got people now voting, well before the election, and so you don't have you don't have as many of that last minute effect. The last minute ad blitz, I don't think has as big effect as it used to, because if you've got 40% of the people or more voting by absentee or by mail or whatever you want to call it, it changes the dynamic of how you run a campaign.
Hmm.
So some things are going to be baked in there really quick. And election day may not be as big a deal in terms of shifting the vote as it was in the
Hmm.
past. All right.
And okay, my final thoughts. A couple things. One, go to dwightfromoco.com. Our yard signs are here. They're beautiful and they're really nice. Sign up to get a yard sign. We can have it delivered to you, or you can come pick them up from our various drop-off locations where you're going to pick them up. Also, October 24th, I've got a fundraiser with First Lady Kendall Ehrlich. It is going to be in Kensington, Maryland. And if you go to Dwight from Moco, you can buy tickets. Tickets are a low price of $55 and $100 for a couple. Come on out. It is a great event. And Kendall is just an awesome speaker. And she was in the Trump administration and has had a lot of experience. And great time will be had. And we will have some copies of Governor Ehrlich's books autographed for you to purchase at the event as well. Again, go to dwightfromoco.com. You can go there. You can also sign up for our yard sale. Also, the Montgomery County Republican Club Monday is our Columbus Day celebration bonanza. It is going to be our pizza and politics Columbus Day edition with our fabulous executive director of Maryland GOP, Corinne Frank. She's going to be coming and telling us the history of Columbus Day and how it became a holiday and why it became a holiday. It's very important. I keep every time I say it, I keep, but anyways, but I keep thinking,
We're not having
like,
Indigenous Peoples Day pizza? Come on.
no. Oh, it's funny. I was talking to somebody. I go, it would be great if we get a graphic with Tonto, Commander Chakotay, and was it McLeod that was part Native American also?
Could have been.
Yeah, get them and have them wish you a happy Indigenous People Day. With them, standing around, and it's like, and we can even add Cher when she had the Native American headdress that she, By the way, that video would be canceled today. Pizza and Politics is going to be at the Falls Grove, which is Shady Grove. We used to call it, but now they call it Rockville. I don't know why, but it's going to be there on Monday. Pizza and Politics Columbus Day special. The Ehrlich event is going to be on October 24th. It's a Monday night in Kensington, Maryland. Susan, you've been there before. You know exactly where it's going to be. So it'll be a lot of fun. Do come, and Craig, hopefully, and you too. You should definitely come, and we look forward to seeing you guys. 7 actually.
We know Craig loves these events, so that's good.
Yeah, it's at 7 p.m. Craig, because Corinne's coming from Anne Arundel County, and last week I had to go to Anne Arundel County, and yeah, it does take an hour to get from there to here. But that was you. That's right. You were there too at our Anne Arundel Pizza. Oh, am I talking too fast? Okay, I'll try and slow it down. Remember that old Roy Rogers? Remember that old Roy Rogers commercial where actually I don't think it was Roy Rogers, it was McDonald's. How their slogan used to be "We take it easy. We don't talk fast or whatever." And I think McDonald's or Wendy's or somebody had slow down cowpoke, and they're like, and they show a guy waiting like months for his order to come up because Roy Rogers took things too slow. But yeah, I'll probably be there around 6:30 though, Craig. So the festivities we start the festivities at 6:30. Maybe if I can find some Columbus Day branded cookies, that would be awesome. I wish I knew where you could buy cookie cutters in the shapes of the Nina, and the Santa Maria and Pinta.
Yeah, I don't. That's maybe on Amazon.
Yeah, but
or Etsy or something.
Yeah, but it might be canceled now because they call it. They now call it. They call it now. Google Calendar calls it Indigenous People Day. Hey, buddy, is Macy's having their Indigenous Peoples Day sale, or is it going to be a Columbus Day sale this weekend?
Yeah, well, I don't know. That's a good question.
Because remember, back in the days, what was it? The Woolworths and McCrory's, they would always do like big Columbus Day blowouts. You could buy things for a couple of pennies and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I just have a hard time seeing any kind of commercial with Indigenous Peoples Day sale. Come on.
But yeah, I mean, going out Columbus Day is Monday. By the way, there is Indigenous People Month. I believe it's in June or sometime June or July. There is an Indigenous People Month. It used to be called Native American History Month, but now it's called Indigenous People Month. And we've got but that's with that said, I think I'm done with my final thoughts. And by the way, everything's good in Florida. The brunt of the storm was my lime trees, where the limes fell off, and it was fun, and if you look at how Florida's response to Hurricane Ian, and if you compare it to Katrina, right, this is what happens when you have good leaderships on all levels of state government. Katrina was just a mess. Everywhere from Ray Nagin to Governor Blanco, or I forget who else it was. No, she was a senator. Who was the governor? Then it wasn't. Was that her brother that was the governor of Louisiana back then?
Well, Blanco was the woman.
Yeah, she was the governor. Then she became.
Yeah.
Because I know she ran for Senate also at one point. But point is, Ron DeSantis, great job. You turned off the tolls, by the way. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I love how, and every state could learn from Florida. The speed limit is just a suggestion. If you go 95, they don't bother you. A lot of states can learn from that. And that's my final thoughts. Speed limits, are they really needed? Anyways, good night, everyone. See everyone next week.
If not
Take
on
care.
Monday.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's right. In person Monday, the doctors have appearances. Yeah, and Dr. Jeff will be there Monday too. By the way, he'll be back and from his month of being a traveling man around the here, there, everywhere. So Jeff will be back. And next Wednesday is the Prince George's County Lincoln Reagan dinner. You can still buy tickets right now. Lincoln Reagan dinner. Governor Ehrlich is the speaker. Great event. Great event. A lot of good people support Prince George's County GOP in their Lincoln Day dinner. Good night, everyone.
Good night.